everybody, welcome back to Leah's Library. Today I'm really excited because we are going to read 3 books by one of my favorite illustrators, Steven Kellog. He has illustrated numerous books and he's really easy to find at the library. You can just look up Steven Kellog, and if you can't spell it, you can ask an adult to help you. So his art is really fun because it's detailed and it's funny and silly, and you can find secret things hidden in there. So today we're going to read Library Lil, excuse me, by Suzanne Williams, illustrated by Steven Kellog. The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash by Trinka Hakes Noble, pictures by Steven Kellog. And The Pied Piper's Magic, also by Steven Kellog. All right, let's dive on in. Hopefully it'll be quieter today outside with the neighbors and you won't hear the lawnmowers. Sorry about that. Library Lil by Suzanne Williams. Whoa, there's a lot going on in that picture. Who is that girl? Let's find out. I bet you think all librarians are mousy little old ladies, hair rolled up in a bun, beady eyes peering out at you over the tops of those funny half glasses, an index finger permanently attached to lips, mouthing, "Shh, be very still, quiet, silence, no talking, hush." Bet you never heard about Library Lil. Lil wasn't always a librarian, of course. She was a kid first, just like most people. Lil in the tub, 1 year old. She's already got a book. Lil and Secondhand Rose, 3 years old. She's reading a book about cats. Lil on the soccer field, 5 years old. She's reading a book about learning how to play soccer. Lil builds Fort Rose, 7 years old. And her book says Architecture for Kids. She taught herself how to build that fort. Teaches herself how to do a lot of things. Unlike most kids, Lil had a wild imagination. She loved to read, and she imagined herself the hero of every book she checked out of the library. By the time she was 8, she'd read all the books in the children's room. Yes, Lil was a fast reader, and she had the most powerful, strong arms, too. When the 3rd grade soccer ball got stuck under the principal's car, Lil retrieved it. Her strength might have come from carrying all of those books around. For when Lil ran out of children's books, she started in on encyclopedias. She used to check out a whole set at once. She'd walk down the street reading the A volume, held open in her hand, while she balanced the remaining volumes on the palm of her hand. She turned the pages with her teeth. Wow. So it was no surprise to anyone when Lil grew up and became a librarian, landing a job in the nearby town of Chesterville. The townspeople soon dubbed her Library Lil. Lil's specialty was storytelling. But when she advertised a story time in the local newspaper, no one showed up. And when she posted a list of the fantastic new books she had ordered, no one came to check them out. Storytelling Festival today at 2. Welcome! Great new books are in. Check them out. Don't miss the Storytelling Festival today at 2. But no one came. It was clear that the people of Chesterville were not avid readers. Television was their favorite form of entertainment, and Lil did not approve of TV. Devil's invention, she called it, keeps folks away from good books. So you can see everybody in the windows, everybody's watching TV. Those runners have TVs on their heads. Everybody. Oh, even the bird is watching TV. Everybody's watching TV. Even the nurse and the babies. Goodness. And Lil's like, oh dear. To Lil's way of thinking, TV was an evil that ranked right up there with poison ivy and mosquitoes. She knew she had her work cut out for her. One horrible stormy night, the wind blew down some power lines. The whole town of Chesterville was plunged into darkness. TVs popped off like flashbulbs. This was the chance Lil had been waiting for. She fought her way through the driving rain to the town's ancient bookmobile, battling 80-mile-per-hour winds that threatened to carry her away like a feather in an updraft. Unfortunately, that old bookmobile had been sitting too long. Its battery was deader than a pickled herring. But did that stop Library Lil? No, sir. Up and down the streets of town she went, pushing that bookmobile ahead of her just like a baby carriage. Look at that. There's the downed power lines. The big storm. By the end of the night, every man, woman, and child in Chesterville was reading a book by the flickering light of a candle. The power was out for 2 whole weeks, by which time the townspeople had solidly formed the habit of reading. Suddenly, folks were borrowing more books than they had in the entire 50 years since the library had been built. And there was standing room only for Lil's story time. Not long after the storm, a motorcycle gang rode into town. The leader of the gang was Bust-em-Up Bill. He was a towering 6'7", and when he took off his jacket to play pool, he revealed a skull and crossbones tattoo that would scare the wool off of a sheep. Now, at first, Lil took no more notice of Bill and his gang than a duck would of rain. She was only interested in reading, and they kept her plenty busy at the library since the storm. So while Bill and his gang hustled pool at a local tavern, Library Lil checked out books. It wasn't long before Bust-em-Up Bill found out about Lil, though. You see, he was in the habit of watching professional wrestling on Tuesday nights. So when Tuesday night rolled around, Bill expected to watch his favorite program. "Where's the dang TV?" he yelled at the bartender. Don't have one, sir," said the bartender. "Nobody in town watches it much anymore. Too many good books to read." "No one round here watches TV?" Bill roared. "What's the matter with you folks?" The bartender chuckled nervously. Lil's made us all into readers." "Readers?" Bill laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. He faced his gang. "Did you hear that? These lily-livered coward read books." The way he said books left no doubt that to him that was the filthiest word in the English language. "Who is Lil?" He spat the words out like bullets. Our librarian, squeaked the bartender. Where is she? Growled Bill. The bartender cringed. She'll be parking her bookmobile across from the library in about 10 minutes, sir. Bill stomped towards the door. Let's go, he grunted to his gang. When Lil arrived, she found the parking lot filled with motorcycles and surly bikers. Move your bikes, she called. You're blocking my parking place. Tough cookies, sister, said Bill. It's your fault I'm missing my favorite TV show. Listen, Lil said. I don't want trouble. Just move the bikes. The gang stood their ground. All right, said Lil. If you won't move them, I guess I'll just have to move them for you. Did you hear that? Bill shouted to his gang. She'll move them for us. Sister, why, if you can do that, why, I'll... Bill glanced at the bookmobile. I'll read a book, he finished. It was the worst thing that he could think of. Lil grinned. She flexed her skinny muscles, then she stooped down, reached under one of the motorcycles. Straightening, she suddenly hoisted the motorcycle up over her head and tossed it into the street. It cost her little more effort than flinging an apple core. Bust-em-up Bill and his gang watched, with their jaws hanging down, as Lil threw one motorcycle after another onto a stack, reaching up toward the moon. I like Lil. When she'd cleared the parking lot, Lil drove the bookmobile on in. Then she climbed down and headed toward the library's front door. All right, boys, she called out. I'm open for business. Bill's boys tried to sneak away, but Bill hauled them up by their collars. Not so fast, he growled. We're all getting books. If anyone tries to leave with that one, he's gonna be reminded why my nickname is Bust 'em Up. It wasn't long before every man in Bill's gang was reading away. Of course, some of them hadn't learned too well in school, so Lil gave them some of the easier books to begin on. That's called The Island of the Skog. This one is called The Christmas Witch. The Mysterious Tadpole, which is another one of my favorite Steven Kellogg's books. The Mystery of the Missing Red Mitten. Maybe you might have read some of those books. Several of the guys got into a fight over who was going to be the first to check out the mouse in the motorcycle. Fortunately, Lil found some extra copies and calmed things down. Last time I was over to Chesterville, they added a new wing to the town library. Seems Lil's been busier than ever. She had to take on a library assistant to help out. The new assistant's a big fellow. The townspeople call him Bookworm Bill. The kids think he's a whale of a storyteller, but then he learned from the master. That's a cool costume. Since Bill's been on the job, Lil says there hasn't been a single overdue book. I think she's kind of sweet on the guy. Says she's even taken to watching a little of the Devil's Invention, particularly on Tuesday nights. Howdy, sports fans. Let's meet tonight's guests. The end. Oh, look at that. Looks like Library Lil and Bookworm Bill did in fact fall in love with each other, and they got married. And there's their wedding cake. Excuse me. Well, that's a fun one. Some of those other books that we saw the motorcycle gang reading in the library, I can check out, and we can read those books on this channel as well. That would be kind of fun. All right, our second book today is called The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash. Here we go. The day Jimmy's boa ate the wash. A class trip to the farm. The 12th Street School. Here's the teacher setting up her board and teaching a lesson about corn. And Jimmy has an awfully big bag. You can see this is his because it has a J on it for Jimmy. What's coming out of it? A really long tail. What's the farmer doing? Listening to the radio? Plowing his fields? And look at all that laundry. It all stretches all the way back here. The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash by Trinka Hakes Noble. Pictures by Steven Kellog. Hi, how was your class trip to the farm? Oh, boring. Kind of dull. Until the cows started crying. A cow crying? Yeah, you see, a haystack fell on her. But a haystack doesn't just fall over. It does if the farmer crashes into it with his tractor. Oh, come on. A farmer wouldn't do that. He would if he were too busy yelling at the pigs to get off our school bus. Poor cow. What were the pigs doing on the bus? Oh, eating our lunches. Of course they were. Why were they eating your lunches? Because we threw their corn at each other and they didn't have anything else to eat. Well, that makes sense. But why were you throwing corn? Because we ran out of eggs. Out of eggs? Why were you throwing eggs? Because of the boa constrictor. The boa constrictor? Yeah, Jimmy's pet boa constrictor. What was Jimmy's pet boa constrictor doing on the farm? Oh, well, he brought it to meet all the farm animals. But the chickens didn't like it. You mean he took it into the hen house? Yeah, and the chickens started squawking and flying around. Go on, what happened? Well, one hen got excited and laid an egg and it landed on Jenny's head. The hen? No, the egg, and it broke, yucky, all over her hair. What did she do? She got mad because she thought Tommy threw it, so she threw one at him. What did Tommy do? Oh, he ducked, and the egg hit Marianne in the face. So, she threw one at Jenny, but missed and hit Jimmy, who dropped the boa constrictor. He's like, get me out of here. Oh, I know. And the next thing you knew, everyone was throwing eggs, right? Right. And when you ran out of eggs, you threw the pig's corn, right? Right again. Well, what finally stopped it? Well, we heard the farmer's wife screaming. Why was she screaming? You hear the neighbor's dog. We never found out because Miss Stanley made us get on the bus, and we sort of left in a hurry without the boa constrictor. Look at her. Get on the bus! Oh my goodness. This cat is laughing. I bet Jimmy was sad because he left his pet boa constrictor. Look at her. She's all ready to go racing. Oh, not really. We left in such a hurry that one of the pigs didn't get off the bus. So now he's got a pet pig. Boy, that sure sounds like an exciting trip. Yeah, I suppose, if you're the kind of kid who likes class trips to the farm. Bye, see you later, Ma. They're riding their derby car through the park with the pet pig. So that must be Jimmy. Oh, so silly. And the boa constrictor lived happily ever after. Look at that. Looks like the farmer and his wife really loved the boa. She's knitting him a long sweater with hearts all over it. And it looks like he's got his own bed over here. It says boa. The end. There he is in his nice long sweater, and the chickens are all snuggled up to it. Looks like the boa constrictor and the chickens made peace. That's a fun story. All right, our last book for today is called The Pied Piper's Magic. There he is, walking down the pathway in the forest with his tools on his back. The Pied Piper's Magic by Steven Kellog. Let's see here. I know this is a little wobbly. Thank you for your patience while I figure out camera doodads. Okay, here we go. One day, long ago and far away, a small elf in search of work came upon a tumble-down old house. The elf was so poor that his clothes were made of rags and patches, but he was a good-natured fellow, and when he spotted a woman slumped on the porch, he approached her with a hopeful smile. "I'm Peterkin," he said. "With your permission, I could spend a few hours making myself useful around your cottage. Perhaps you might be willing to pay me a penny or two." "I'm Elbaval," grumbled the woman. "I'm a retired witch who was a worthless witch, even back in the days when I was a working witch. I haven't a penny to pay for anything. Be gone." Peterkin had never met such a dreary person, so he decided to try and cheer her up. "Never mind the penny," he said. "I'll just spend a few minutes tidying up the place, and then I'll be on my way." The elf worked so quickly that he seemed to be everywhere all at once, and he didn't quit until the cottage glowed from the cellar to the chimney. "Welcome to Elbaval's cottage," the sign says. Sweeping, mowing the lawn, watering the flowers, potting some flowers, taking out the garbage, washing the windows, fixing the banister, and the gutters, and the roof, and the windows, and the chimney. Painting. My goodness. He's a magic little fellow, isn't he? For a moment, Elbaval almost smiled. "Little elf," she said, "I am grateful for your kindness. Although I haven't a penny to pay you, let me give you this pipe. I was told long ago that it has a magical power, but I have never discovered what that power is. Perhaps you can." "Oh, thank you, Elbaval," cried Peterkin. But to his dismay, the woman's dark mood returned. "Leave me to my solitude," she muttered. "I am a lonely, old, and worn out. Go away." She's very dramatic. The pied elf set out again to look for work, but Elbaval's gloom followed him. He studied the pipe and said, "I wish your magic could have made that sad lady smile." To cheer himself up, he tried to play a few notes, but to his surprise, the pipe made the sound of the letters. Look at all those letters. Even better, when he played Butterflies or Bees or Bluebirds, those creatures mysteriously appeared. Butterflies spells butterflies. Bees spells bees. Bluebrid spells bluebirds. Next, he tried Deer. Deer. "Amazing!" cried the elf. He was so excited that he flipped over backwards, and the pipe responded by reversing the letters, and sang R-E-E-D, reed. The deer was instantly transformed into a reed. This is a reed, like a long piece of grass. Peterkin experimented by flipping once again, and the pipe sang out D-E-E-R. And sure enough, the reed turned back into a deer. Filled with wonderment, Peterkin exclaimed, "From now on, enchanted pipe, you shall be my traveling companion and my friend." He happily resumed his journey. So caught up he was in his pipe playing that he forgot all about dreary Elbawal. Look at this. A unicorn. U-N-I-C-O-R-N. F-O-X. Fox. S-E-R-P-E-N-T-S. Serpents. S-W-A-N. Swan. Come on, fingers. There we go. Many miles later, on the forest pathway, it joined a winding road that led the elf to the gates of a dark city. Clouds of foul-smelling smoke belched from the chimneys and hovered menacingly over the rooftops. As Peterkin entered the gates, he was amazed to see thousands and thousands of rats. They scuttled everywhere, ignoring the children who were trying to shoo them away. "Where are your parents?" Peterkin asked the children. "The Grand Duke has ordered them to work all day and all night in the factories," replied the children sadly. "He rules the city and everyone fears him." As for the rats, the elf was told that the Grand Duke had promised 1,000,000 gold florins to anyone who could get rid of them. Until the prize was won, however, the children had been ordered to patrol the streets and sweep the rats away from public monuments. "We'd better get back to work," wailed the smallest girl. "The Grand Duke sends people to the dungeon if he finds them standing idly about." "Well, I will earn that reward," cried Peterkin, "and then I will give it to you and your parents so you can leave this gloomy city and live happily together as parents and children should." He lifted his pipe and played, R-A-T-S, 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 rats, 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 rats. Instantly, rats began pouring from cellars, windows, and rooftops. As growing herds of the rats swarmed into line behind Peterkin, the excited children forgot that they had been forbidden by the Grand Duke to interrupt their parents' work, and they burst into the factories. "Come quickly," they cried. "A Pied Piper is rounding up the rats, and he has promised to give us the reward." By nightfall, every rat in the city had been led to the Grand Duke's palace. Remembering the deer and reed, the elf played R-A-T-S, R-A-T-S, R-A-T-S. Then he flipped over backwards, and R-A-T-S became S-T-A-R. Star, 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 sang the pipe. The crowd gasped, then cheered as the rats became shimmering stars. The cheering aroused the Grand Duke. "Silence!" he roared. "Return to the factories at once!" "Wait!" cried the children. "It's a celebration! The rats are gone! The piper has earned the reward!" "Ha!" scoffed the Grand Duke. "For inciting a riot and disrupting my sleep, the piper shall get 50 years in the dungeon. You are even more miserable than Elbabal." Oh, wait, sorry, wrong voice. Let's try that again. "The piper's reward shall be 50 years in the dungeon." "You are even more miserable than Elbabal," cried Peterkin. "Elbabal? Who is Elbabal?" bellowed the Grand Duke. Suddenly, the piper was struck by an idea. Peterkin played a single word, strong and clear. S-T-A-R. He followed it with the highest backward flip yet. R-A-T-S, sang the pipe. Overhead, one especially large and sparkly star exploded, and a shower of chattering rats plummeted onto the balcony, flattening the Grand Duke. Peterkin played R-A-T-S, and the animals leapt to obey, dragging the shrieking Duke behind them. The parents and children followed as the rest of the stars swooped down to light their way through the city gates, into the forest, and finally to Elbaval's cottage. "Elbaval, wake up!" cried Peterkin. "I have discovered the secret of the pipe's magic." He played E-L-B-A-V-O-L, Elbaval, Elbaval, and with a triumphant laugh, he flipped over backwards, and it spelled L-O-V-A-B-L-E, lovable, 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 sang the pipe. Elbaval became lovable. Elbaval stared at the elf in amazement. "Lovable?" she asked. "Yes, truly lovable," said Peterkin. And for the first time in the woman's life, she smiled. And she looked so beautiful when she smiled. The glow of that smile surrounded the entire group, including the Grand Duke. The rats faded away as he gazed in wonderment at Elbaval. Then, for the first time in his life, the Grand Duke smiled back. "Lovable," he whispered. Suddenly, he and Elbaval, finding both themselves and each other lovable, were transformed. Their loneliness and unhappiness disappeared, and they fell joyfully into each other's arms. "I have no wish to return to the palace," said the Grand Duke. "Wise and noble piper, please accept this key to the city as the reward for your heroic deeds." But the Pied Piper presented the key to the parents. He asked them to transform the city into a lovable place where they and their children could live happily. Elbeval and the Grand Duke were married, and after a wedding feast, Peterkin resumed his journey, eager to discover new uses for his magic pipe. A year later, he returned to the city. Some of the children spotted him making his way across the valley, and with cries of joy, they ran to welcome him. It warmed Peterkin's heart to see that the buildings now glowed from the cellars to the chimneys, and that the streets were filled with laughter and sunlight and music. Welcome. Wow, look at that city. Definitely an improvement from when it was before. And they made a big fountain in the town. That was the Pied Piper and all his rats. And everyone played in the water together. The Pied Piper Fountain. They're showing him and he's laughing. Parents and children, grandparents, cats and dogs. There's no more rats. Everybody is playing. Look, all the rats are spitting water. And there's a band marching in the background. The end. Ratstar. That's a fun book, too. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for Library Lil by Suzanne Williams. The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash by Trinka Hakes Noble, and The Pied Piper's Magic, all of them illustrated by Steven Kellog. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you guys later.